What up, y'all? I am Steve with ELEV8 Presents, and this is
Teresa,
the super lovely, amazing ELEV8 doll, yet also a veteran. Holy mackerels, that's a lot of cool stuff. So today, our topic is inflation. It's a really crazy thing, and yeah, that's how I feel. It's kind of over my head. Not really, but kind of. I'm not an economist. I did take economics, micro, macro, both in high school and a little bit of community college.
Okay.
So I know a little bit, but maybe just enough to get in trouble. What do you know? Yeah, I think we both did a little bit of research before this, so we didn't sound like complete idiots. But the question is, I think, is inflation a good thing or a bad thing? I know when I first take a quick look at inflation, I'm like, man, that shit's fucked up. You know, as a business owner, prices are always going up. That means eventually I got to raise my prices.
Right.
But in the meantime, my profits are going down. Last administration said profits are bad. Profits are the only thing that makes a company work. Even nonprofits need profits so then they can give that stuff out. I know it's not called profits, but
right.
Money makes the world work. You know, it's a form of trade. So inflation, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? First off, it just is an inevitable thing. Could they do away with it? I don't know.
Oh, I don't know either.
Theoretically, it would be good to get rid of inflation, I think, and then just let the markets fluctuate by supply and demand. Everything's going to go up and down by supply and demand. You know, if we can't get natural resources, prices are going to go up to make something. If we develop ways to get those resources, prices will come down.
Right.
The more we have, the supply and demand, super simple. So I think because this is a kind of a hot topic, I want to start our session early. Usually we start a little later. And then, yeah, another thing I find, you know, is inflation. You know, we're always raising the minimum wage. Do I want people to get paid more? Absolutely, yes.
Right.
They deserve the money they get for the skill sets they have, I believe. You know, but we got this stuff. Let's raise minimum wage to $15. I understand what that does. It gives the people at the very, 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 very bottom, it raises them up. But it doesn't change the bottom. The bottom is still the bottom.
Right.
And then we'll get into this about inflation and what does that do to somebody that is not quite at the bottom, but they've been working really hard and they're kind of in the middle. So what that does kind of a lot, and I see that a lot around here, you know, just a lot of every place is people aren't getting raises like they used to. You know, inflation has still gone up, everything like that. So those people, because of inflation and that, and not getting raises, they're actually making less money.
And then did they come down?
They come down, right? When you raise the floor, I like to use a thing.
Okay, so they don't really move. The floor comes up. The bottom comes to them.
Yeah, exactly. So like, right, if they were a beautiful table like this is, you raise the floor up, now I can't sit at this table because it's jacked up because the floor got raised.
Right, and my chair never moved.
The chair never moved. You know, you didn't move, but inflation or the floor came up for that to compensate some inflation, yet because of the way it's done, it didn't necessarily work. So today, I'm not sure what we're vaping on today. It's just
it smells
goodness.
amazing. And so, wow, I'm still trying to wrap my head around all of it because, you know, I've always just worked minimum wage jobs except when I was in the military. And when I mean minimum wage, I mean I was a waitress or whatever. So I worked below minimum wage with tips.
And they base that based on what they think you're making on your tips.
Right.
Based on this or this and that. So they know how low to pay you plus your tips to equal out on minimum wage or just above or however it is.
And truth be told, if we weren't making enough money in that industry, we would move on. And so people that
well, you move on, but then you're replaced with somebody at a little bit lower than you, which they end up making less money. So it doesn't,
Right.
or they're in the same position, so that job didn't pay more or anything. And that's one of the big points of inflation is when you're working stiff like me, you know, you kind of get hosed at it because your pay kind of keeps staying the same or going up. Whereas your pay stays the same, well, and then cost of living keeps going up, so you're actually making less money.
And so that's my question. Cost of living and inflation. What would be the difference between the two? Because that's what I'm confused. So when I moved here from North Carolina, my cost of living went up, but my pay didn't change until I got a different job or whatever. So what is that considered?
So like inflation and what was that again?
Cost of living.
Cost of living, right? So they're kind of the same but totally different because based on your area, like California is very high priced and cost of living is affected by your government raising taxes on you as well.
Okay.
Whether it's just the corporations, those corporations have to pass that down to the people that are buying their goods, which is everybody else. So we raise taxes on the rich. We raise taxes across the board. So I'm always against raising taxes. You think this government, I mean, with the population growth, they should have money. It should be there. They were able to do this before and they can't now. Oh, but then there's inflation, so they need more. There's another thing about inflation. It goes up, and when they take those people and raise them up, those people actually make even less money than they did before. Why? Why? Because they just went into a higher tax bracket.
Oh my goodness.
That higher tax bracket now gets taxed higher. What's really fucked up, right, is these cats working 2 jobs, or if you work overtime, let alone 2 jobs, because usually your second job isn't even overtime. So the cats working 2 jobs are really shit on, even more so than the cats working overtime, because overtime's time and a half of your normal wage, whereas your second job is usually actually less than your original job, right? But now I take on a second job, I'm working 60, 80 hours, I move up to a higher tax bracket, so I gotta pay more taxes. That's not fair when you are putting more into the society than somebody else working 40 hours. Like, I get the whole thing about the dollars, and this guy may not have, or female may not have the skill set as somebody up here, but man,
So
jack move.
So what I'm hearing, and I could be wrong, is let's say we have couple A over here who are both working. They're both barely making it because they're making minimum wage, let's say, and they qualify for food stamps. So they're barely making it. Now, minimum wage, let's say they're at a $10 minimum wage. Minimum wage goes up to $12. Now, all of a sudden, they're each making $12 an hour. So their income has increased, but their bills have all stayed the same or actually increased as well because rent went up. And now
initially
also,
it doesn't. It will catch up to them.
Okay, but then their food stamps gets cut.
Oh shit, snap. That's another play the government don't like to tell people,
So
right?
then what happens? They're both only making $2 more an hour. That definitely can't cover the food and the rest of the expenses. So what are we really doing by raising the minimum wage?
Yeah, we appease some voters at the bottom, right? And then that's also, reality is, it's kind of a pyramid, right? The people at the top are fewer and they're making the most, where the people at the bottom are making the least, but there's a lot more of them.
Right.
So it's all about votes and just snatching votes and shit. I truly believe.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, hell yeah, everybody wants to make more money, right? Learn more skills.
Right.
Outwork the motherfucker next to you, and I promise you, when you go to your boss and say, yo, I need some more money, he's going to be happy to pay you more. Because if you're outworking the person next to you by 1.5 and you're only asking for a 0.2% increase,
right.
Yo, the productivity is way up for your position, which means that corporation or boss is making money on it, which is a good thing, right? And
right.
it's a good thing.
Okay, so my child, let's say my children are moving here from Georgia. The minimum wage there, I don't know, let's say it's $7.45. Let's just say it's that. It might be $8.50, something like that. And now they're moving here where the minimum wage is going up to $12 an hour. How are they expected to then go back out into society at, they're making $8. They know what they're worth at $8. They move here, all of a sudden they're making 12. But in their mind, they're still like, wait, I should only be making 8. But now they're going to go to another job somewhere else and make potentially less, but yet still be in the mind frame, oh, I can make more money. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, because in their head, they're making, 1.5 times more than what they were making there. Reality is when you get out here, the cost of living is higher. Now, if you're a kid and you're not paying for rent, your cost of living doesn't really go up that much. You're not paying for food. You're not paying for a lot of other stuff. So your cost of living doesn't go up. So you do put more money in your pocket.
Right.
Thing is, your parents' cost did go up. So therefore, their earning power went down. So as a unit, you guys kind of almost are the same a little bit.
Okay.
Being in the military, though, I think they might give you some kind of stipend for cost of living, depending on where it's at.
Right. So military, if you are active duty, you get what's called a cost of living allowance, or BAH, BAQ, or food stipend. So there's a few different things that they tie into it, and it's now, it may be called something different. It was called BAQ when I was in, then it was called BAH. It's a whole bunch of different things. But yes, they give you an allotted amount of money based on the zip code you're stationed at.
Right, so based on zip code, right? So if I go up north and these houses are 400,000 and I was stationed up at the Air Force Academy, because that's a more expensive zip code,
right?
Then those people are going to get paid more money than if they're down south working
at Fort Carson. Yes, because the cost of living at Fort Carson, that's so interesting. The cost of living down at Fort Carson is probably 2 times less than the Academy area.
Yeah, but the house, it's half the quality.
Yeah, it is. That's like a ghetto area down there unless you get further out.
So there's the thing too, is like cost of living is kind of like the home it is, or something like that.
That's interesting, because the majority of military bases you go to, right outside of them is pretty scummy, pretty slummy. The cost of living right outside of a military base is really low. But when you get further out into suburbs, it gets a little higher and higher. So that's interesting. If they're forcing the military people to kind of live at that lower standard and pay more if they go out there. Yeah,
but they could live on base for even cheaper.
Not always. So that's not the case. So here at Fort Carson, they're full.
Well, so I think how that works is, if you want to move further away from the base, you need to move up in your ranks. Pretty much just like in the civilian world, if you want to move to a better place, you need to gain more skills and gain more dollars.
Well, on a military base, it's the same way. The private E1s have a lower, but they do pay now. Nothing is free anymore. So this basic allowance for housing is not given to you plus a free rent. You don't get free rent and electric and everything plus that. In most bases now, you have to pay rent and electric when you do live on post, because what they did is they subcontracted all the military housing outside of the military control. So now it's run by civilians. So the civilians are getting all the money.
But the civilians also pay for the military. So
correct.
I think that's how the government just moves things around. Mm-hmm. Right?
Right.
Like, they just moves things around. We just learned today, our government, our military, is the biggest employer in the world.
The Department of Justice is the biggest employer in the entire world.
Right. So
the United States Department of Justice. That's crazy.
So they're taking all the taxes, putting it into there, and those people are just putting it back into the economy. And then so
the United States government is God, really.
No, they're
not God,
control.
But they are in control of everything if they're the largest employer.
They get to do a lot of that.
Wow. And so that's a big thing with inflation and military, Social Security.
Yeah, but they do raise those things up. The biggest thing I think that don't get raises sometimes are non-government jobs.
Right.
They get raised when the minimum wage goes up, but in between, those people in between, they don't get any kind of increase for cost of living. They don't do a lot of other things, whereas any government job, whether it be military, postal worker, judge, police
Right,
worker.
first of the year, every year, it's an automatic raise.
They do. It's a little bit like this or whatever it is,
Right.
but the average citizen doesn't get it.
No.
And so, you know, while theirs is going up, they too then do get a little bit more money, even if they're living outside of the base, which then starts to
Yes.
raise those costs up because they have more money. And then these people out here, they have to almost move in.
Right.
It's a whole.
And then it drives up the cost because then you have the higher enlisted that'll go get those higher. It just all works. You're right. It just drives it up, drives it up, drives it up.
Yeah, I don't think the military drives it up at all, or
Well-
any government job drives it up.
Well, if the government is the largest employer and the employees and us are the ones that are driving demand, would that not?
No,
No?
I don't think so, because they're just employees basically.
Right.
Right. So they're basically at the, and we'll talk about that. They are going to get a cost of raise, so they're not quite as bad as like the average citizens that potentially won't get a cost of living raise. But I don't know if they're getting the same cost of living raise as what inflation is.
Right. Okay.
The big thing about inflation is if you save your money and don't invest it, you are going to lose. Plain and simple.
So don't keep it in a mattress.
Don't keep it in a mattress. Don't even keep it in a bank, right? It's fine, but if you're earning 2.1%, I don't even know what the bank pays, but it's not much. And so if inflation's 2%, you have to make 2% on your money, or you're losing 2% of your money
Oh,
each
wow.
year.
I see.
Like your value goes down. So you have to invest it and make that go up and build, right? So if you're at an inflation of 2% and you make 4%, you're only really made 2% on your money.
Gotcha. Wow. Okay.
So anybody that just saves, typically in the mattress, you're losing. It's not a good thing for you.
Right, because grandma's mattress that may have $20 under it from today. Wait.
20,000 from 10 years ago is not today.
No, it would only be like 20. Well, it wouldn't be $20, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
It'd still be $20. But
Got
when
it.
I talk about bread, so just really quickly this, in 1930 bread was 9 cents a loaf, right? Seems cheap or whatever, just is what it is. Because you only, on average, took home
9
$2,000 a year though,
Right.
right? So not bad. And in 2013, that's where the statistic came from. It was $2 for bread, so it went up 22 times. So that's what, about 83 years? Interesting, crazy is a car. In 1930s, it was $600, and now they're up around 31. So that's a
Okay.
51 times increase.
Jeez.
That's huge. So it's really hard to purchase a car now compared to the way it used to be.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
A ham, you could get a ham in 1930 for 12 cents. In 2013, it was up to $4.60, and that's a 39%. So
Is that per pound?
I'd assume so, maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's up 32%. So over that time, you know, your purchasing power went in half. Like you can only eat half as much pork. And then your pay, what I did find, I thought pay wouldn't have been quite the same. In 1930 was $2,000, and then in 2013 it was $44,000. So it went up 20%, 2%, 22 times, not
Right.
percent, 22 times. And so that actually equaled up the same as bread. And so,
Okay.
like, I guess if you only ate bread, things haven't really changed.
Right.
I think what has changed is the technology we have to get that cheap food now, right? Before we actually had
Yes.
people and some machines out there
Yes.
to harvest it. Now we got just machines that kind of touch of a button and the field's planted, picked,
Everything.
produced, everything.
And
barely
everything grows
touched by a human.
faster and everything now.
Yeah,
Just-
we better chemicals, whether you want to call it good or bad, you know, now you don't have bugs eating your shit
right,
because we got
GMOs, yeah.
all this, we got GMOs, a lot
Yeah.
of stuff there.
Which I don't think GMOs are bad, but we're not talking about that.
Yeah. And then another thing it talked about was it erodes your purchasing power with inflation. And that just goes down to say, if you don't save and inflation's going up, your purchasing power goes down.
Oh my goodness,
So
yeah.
inflation, we did find actually labor becomes more affordable as inflation goes up. And I don't really understand that at all. But I think it's a lagging thing. And so as it goes up, it does become more affordable. I just don't understand that portion of it. So if there's some economists out there, chime in. We'd love to know more about that. That'd be really cool.
Please, we'd love it if you would try to challenge us on this stuff.
It says inflation here helps increase growth. You know, because it's easy money. It's as things are going up, I guess it's growth does happen,
right?
But it's kind of a facade, right? Because it's happening up here, but it's almost like credit because they're giving credit, and that's kind of where inflation happens. Inflation is man-made. Our government does create inflation, and so they know what's happening down the road. They can completely control it. So what they do is they make money, they give it out, they pay people. They do that. They can pay their military people. They can pay their government people. It gets out. They all go out and spend it, or they give contracts to civilians. They get the money right up. They do things with it. And then as it goes out, the money becomes less. And when the government gets it back, it's actually become worth less. And then they go ahead, reprint more money, pass it out for more credit, more stuff. It goes out and comes back and becomes less. So the government's always winning with inflation because they're the ones that start with the money and then can pay it out, and then it goes out and then throughout. So
and from what I read, it's heavily monitored. So even for a recession, which we're not talking about, it takes 2 separate quarters of us going downhill in order for them to even have a recession. So they catch it. And so yes, they are in total control, and it's closely monitored, right?
Yeah, and they catch it and control it with interest rates.
Right,
so like, you know, all interest rates are tied to that subprime or prime, and I guess the prime, subprime is different too, and I just know a little bit about that stuff. But the prime, you know, is there, and then everybody, that's where their lend out. It's crazy to think how that stuff works. They're lending money for like a couple days at these low rates or whatever the prime rates are at, and then it's paid back in a couple of days and stuff. I don't understand that because most, like in my little world, when you borrow it, you're borrowing it for a year, a couple years, maybe 30 years. Crazy people in California gotta go out like 40, 50, 60 years now on mortgages.
Is it because the houses are so expensive?
So expensive, and they don't make enough money.
Oh my goodness.
But so that's a thing too. They could stay there, or you know, like that's all inflated too. Like things go up, but that's because wealthy people live there
and they stay
and they got it, and then you know they need people around them, so they still need stuff. So you can only have people so far out to wait on you and help you with your stuff, and not just wait on you. I mean, it's not that
right.
To
I
help,
get it.
like, because nobody does anything alone. We talked about that. And that's another thing we noticed too, is that with inflation, the welfare states grow because the governments come out and they're like, hey, we got credit, we got this. And that's really where the inflation is coming from, is they're just printing money. They're like, hey, we got some new projects here. We're going to go ahead and do this, and we're not even going to raise taxes because nobody wants taxes raised. And they're going to say, yep, we got new things. We're going to do this, and don't worry, it's going to be taken care of by credit, and we'll get it, kick the can down. That's why we're so, trillions of dollars in debt now, because nobody wants to take care of the situation. I thought this president now, like him or hate him, he was not a full Republican, not a full Democrat. I would have thought maybe something would have got changed, but this deficit is still ridiculous.
Right.
Everything is out of control. It's never really been fixed. Like we're just debt, and it's just impossible to do that. And that's kind of where they're talking about, you just kick the can down the road and let the next person deal with it. We'll just inflate the money so then we can pay these loans off. The government's going to win because they're paying it out. They're the ones creating the money. I guess the Federal Reserve is, but then they give it to the government first. The government, right? Federal Reserve isn't even our government. Go look into that. One thing I found is that, but this was learned, is that inflation depresses people.
Wow.
If you're at the bottom, you're like, well, what the fuck? Things are going up. I need more money.
Right.
Then when you're in the middle and people are getting raises at the bottom and you're not, you're like, what the fuck? These people are getting raises and I'm not. So everybody, you know, because of inflation is like, what the fuck? Whereas people at the top, they know how to invest, they do that, whether they're, you know, they probably know better about it, the investments and stuff, where they keep that knowledge away. I feel from, you know, uneducated people. We have a system, just this is off topic, but we have a system that we can get every child the same education in this country, yet we're giving, you know, inner city kids shithole educations and in nice neighborhoods, phenomenal educations. And we got this beautiful thing called an internet that Al Gore said he made. Cool, buddy. Crazy, right?
It has free schooling on it. The internet.
But we're paying for free schooling. If there's nothing
I know.
free,
well, no,
but we're
you're
paying
right.
as a nation for schooling as public education, right? Buy taxes, things like that. I get it. So in nicer neighborhoods, there's more money there, this or that, and whatnot. But man, it's the internet. We could completely get everybody the same education. And yeah, that's just kind of scary actually, and it doesn't seem right. But that's different, and
yeah, education, a whole nother topic.
Yeah, and then what's some good things, you know, is it causes people to spend their money.
Yes.
People need to spend their money because they see things, you know, changing. Oh, it might go up, so I better buy it now, which causes that whole thing and keeps the economy moving and everything. You know, looking at it and the things that are out there, I don't know what's said or not, but 2% inflation is a good thing. I guess it keeps people scared enough that things are going to go down or whatever, or going to go up, so they better buy it.
So
And then,
anything under 2% or right at 2%?
I don't know how they come up with it. I'm sure it fluctuates, but 2% they found is the good number that keeps people working, keeps unemployment low, because that's another thing that when you look at all the inflation rates to unemployment, as inflation goes up, unemployment goes down. So then inflation goes, you know, maybe to 1%, then unemployment can go up to like 6 or 8%, and it's crazy. If one ticks up 1%, then unemployment can tick up like 2 to 5 or 6%. So one little thing, it's like maybe when you I don't know, the leverage type thing or something that affects it.
Balance.
And then another good thing about it is people don't have to worry about deflation of prices going down and doing that, because reality is if deflation happens, well, then I don't have enough money to pay the employees and do stuff there to keep this thing going. So is inflation good? Is it bad? I don't know.
I guess it depends on the situation.
Yeah, the you know, our economy calls for it. I think in a perfect world, you wouldn't have inflation, and it would all, because it's just so crazy.
But then that would mean your worth would always stay the same, and you would never get a raise. You'd stay working
but
the same.
Your worth does stay the same if your skill set stays the same.
Right.
Earn more skills, learn more things, become more efficient, more proficient, efficient and proficient, earn more money.
You're right. Yeah, I get it.
Right? But in our heads as humans, maybe that's what inflation's for too, as in our heads, right, we need to keep going up. So then if we see that, but that's based on our education system of having an inflation for so long, it's bred into us that if we could not have it, our worth is our worth, right?
Yeah.
As we get older, technically you would think our worth is worth more because our time becomes less. But we don't know when our time could come, because if we get hit by a car, so that's a really weird thing too, is like, there was an equation in high school I had that time equals money. And if you do the math equation out, the less you work, the more you'll make. But I've not found that. I know I bust my ass, and that allows me to earn more dollars, which allows me to invest it in more things.
But yeah, I feel the same way. The more I invest, it seems not the less. Maybe it is the less I make, or the more I tend to give. I'm not sure, but like with this,
excuse the dogs.
Yeah,
they're
they get
protecting
excited.
us.
So here I'm talking about cost of living, inflation, minimum wage. I work commission based only, and so I understand how to earn my money, but
More skills. The more you sell, the more you know, the more you earn.
yes.
So it's
And when I see people that are making this 11 something dollars an hour can potentially earn more than me based on the economy, like who's buying or whatever, it kind of frustrates me at times.
that's why a lot of people don't like commission-based jobs.
I think so, because they don't have the confidence in their own ability. Either that or they just want the stability of it. I mean, I can understand that, knowing that you're going to make $11 or $12 an hour and planning on that every single month is a lot easier than hoping you get your sales.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, wow, okay.
But what this says
That's a risk I take.
So that's what I wonder too, because if it's saying in 2013 your average person was making $22,000 a year, I wonder what are the outliers, and what are outliers? Outliers are things
Right.
that skew the average, right? So if you got a billionaire and everybody's making, 10,000, well, the average isn't 10,000 because there's a billionaire here that brings it up to 20,000 now, right? So he's an outlier. So you got to remove outliers. That comes down. Now, do they remove outliers on stuff like this? Here's the thing: figures don't lie, but liars figure.
Right.
And since the liars are taking the figures and moving them how they want, yes, they do mean proper things. They equate an equation.
Yeah.
Like whatever you want it to be. So don't trust anything. Don't trust whatever side, left side, right side. They're all full of shit. It's all somewhere's in the middle,
Right.
Inflation, good, bad. Seems like I've seen a lot more bad things about inflation than good things.
Yeah, same here, except if it's good, then everything would move at the same, but nothing moves at the same. That just goes like this. They said inflation would be good if it could all just at the same time, but it doesn't. So I guess what makes it bad is however you're situated whenever your part goes the way you don't want it to.
So why not stop inflation? Damn government, stop inflation, stop printing money, and just let's see what happens. But then unemployment's going to go way up, and people are going to be like, well, fuck, man, now I ain't got a job, so what am I doing? It just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
And again, that's probably why those people are making, 6 figures or, $1 million a year. Like, those cats that can fully understand that stuff, they know how to manipulate the markets or manipulate the situation so it works. And they're probably the ones at the top manipulating this whole thing so it works. And we might think it's not working, I guess, but maybe it really is working.
Maybe it is.
I mean, I don't know. Well, let's keep elevating. And it did.